I'm Charlie Brooker and you're watching Screenwipe, a programme all about television.
Sometimes in the middle of the night I worry that maybe, just maybe, all this TV isn't actually very good for me, or for like the world in general and shit, yeah? Kurt Vonnegut once wrote that future generations would look back on TV as the equivalent of the lead in the water pipes that slowly drove the ancient Romans mad. And what if the novel-writing Grumpy Bones was right?
After all, it's not like you can just disregard the box. TV pumps out a river of ever-changing, ever-moving images, which is almost impossible to ignore because your brain's primed to pay attention to movement. It's an inherited evolutionary trait.
Cavemen who didn't notice wolves creeping up on them didn't survive to pass on their genes. We're descended from the jittery ones who looked over their shoulder every few seconds. When watching TV, you effectively have an out-of-body experience. Your physical self melts away and you're not a person anymore, just a half-sentient puddle. For proof, look at the effect telly has on kids. With the TV off, they're a hyperactive fun bundle. Switch it on and immediately they're like stunned fish. Good thing too, actually, if you ask me. I hate kids that run around all full of life, their tiny little sod hats.
And that's just with a normal-sized box. TVs are, of course, getting bigger by the second.
Soon you'll be able to put 4 of them together, facing inwards in a square, drop a roof on top and live in the damn thing. Little wonder some people get so sucked in they start caring more about people on telly than their own bloody families. The influence is everywhere. People dress like people on TV, talk like people on TV.
You're fired. I'm not bothered.
They even name their kids after people they've seen on TV.
It's a sobering thought, but in a million tiny ways, TV has probably influenced you as much as your own parents. That's a lot of power, which is why it's subject to so many checks and guidelines. British TV has to adhere to this fun bundle, the code laid out by regulatory body Ofcom. There's all sorts of stuff in here about offence and so on, but what's more interesting are the guidelines which portray a huge concern over how much influence this, the television, has over this, by which I mean my brain and not my ear, obviously. Now, I could stand here and read the whole thing out, but this is television, not a f***ing meeting. So instead, let's take some of the highlights and package them together in a vaguely sexy, entertaining sort of a way, just to stop you pissing off to another channel for the next few minutes.
Material that might seriously impair the physical, mental or moral development of people under 18 must not be broadcast.
There are several rules like this addressing the worry that kids might be upset by or copy what they've seen on TV, which is why you'll never see anything this irresponsible on CBeebies.
Once upon a time, in a Dingley Dell, there was a magic noose, which was very special, because any girl or boy who put their head through its ropey mouth was instantly carried away to a cartoon kingdom of dollies and chocolate.
Actually, that leads us to another point.
Methods of suicide and self-harm must not be included in programmes except where they are editorially justified and are also justified by the context.
The concern here is not so much to do with upsetting people, but inadvertently putting ideas in their heads.
Programmes must not include material which condones or glamorises violent, dangerous or seriously antisocial behaviour and is likely to encourage others to copy such behaviour.
That's why Jackass, which largely consists of Johnny Knoxville and co cracking up with laughter each time one of them fractures a pelvis, has to come equipped with a disclaimer explicitly commanding the viewer not to copy what they're watching.
Religion and race in particular are extremely hot potatoes for TV, as we've all seen recently. Usually, CBB is a knockabout live-action satire in which famous people make arse-ingrained tits of themselves to the delight of the general public. But this time around, things weren't quite right from the get-go. For starters, the initial lineup was one of the feeblest in history, with a cast list that wouldn't qualify for entry into the VIP section of a branch of Greg's the Bakers. The glittering stars included Shock-Headed Peter, Aled Jones, Delbert Wilkins, Peter Cushing and a 500-year-old Pauline Quirk. God, actually, I think it's disgraceful putting elderly people in the house.
Takes them half a f***ing series to get up the stairs.
The most interesting inmate was Donny Tourette, played by Rick Parfitt from Status Quo.
Being a rocker, he did all the usual outrageous rocker things. Jumping in the pool fully clothed, smoking, flobbing and trying it on with the groupies. Once the first chaotic night was over, things settled down into an agreeably tedious groove. But that was far too civilised, so before long, Big Brother decided to send in the goodies, a group so coarse they could lower the tone at an interspecies farmhouse gangbang. In they came. Jade, increasingly resembling a badly made Billy Piper action figure. Jack, a man so slow he probably has to whistle before going to the toilet so he knows which end to shit through. And Jackie, played here by Doc Cotton, reflected in the side of a dented kettle.
I'll just call her what you like, I'm sure no one will notice.
Straight away, the newcomers proved too much for some of the other housemates to stomach. Donnie gained 1,000 dignity points by scrambling over the wall.
I'm not fucking waiting hand and foot on some fucking moron and their family.
And then Ken stormed out.
Well, I say stormed out. Frankly, I had to hit the fast-forward button 3 times just to get the fucker across the room. By now, the show was in a tailspin, enlivened only by the Alan Partridge-style meltdown of Leo Sayer, who'd gradually lapsed into an eerie impersonation of Dudley Moore on the Derek and Clive albums.
Thank you, and good fucking night. Fuck off. Fuck yourself.
Eventually, in an impressive postmodern protest against the narrative conventions of television, he broke through the fourth wall and assailed the author, represented here by 2 security guards and some production staff. For the first time in Big Brother history, the real spectacle was occurring outside the house. And while the show fell apart on screen, Leo inadvertently predicted what millions would be saying a few days later.
One of the producers.
Well, then, you should never have embarked on this stupid thing. I hope you're making loads of money. This is sick. It's sick.
And from here on in, it all went wrong. The show began to focus on its sole remaining drama as Jade, Joe and Danielle, the world's thickest coven, embarked on a simmering feud with polite and elegant Bollywood star Shilpa Shetty. Bitchiness and verbal bullying have always been part of Big Brother, so seeing 3 girls team up to snipe at another wasn't really new. What was new, however, was the apparent racial element to some of their remarks.
I've got a big hairy face. I must bleach the hairs off my face.
No, you see, you probably shouldn't say that on the telly because it might sound a bit racist.
Has she got a face like a man?
Like Wolf Boy, probably.
And that.
Is that, do they do that in India, eat with the hands?
I'll just black up and have done with it. By now, thousands were complaining about perceived racism. Whether it was or wasn't racist, in my view, the producers could have intervened at this point, reminding all the contestants that discrimination wouldn't be tolerated in the house, thereby giving everyone a chance to think before digging themselves in deeper. I don't actually know if that would have been the right thing to do. Well, not unless I'd had the foresight to see which way it was all heading.
You're a normal housemate, like everybody else.
By now, millions were tuning in to see all this racism they'd heard about, and in that context, the argument looked more like a lynching than what I suspect it really was, a grim one-sided slanging match over a stock cube.
Shut yourself up.
You know what? Your claim to fame is this.
No,
Good
no,
for
no.
you.
My claim to fame is meeting you, you fucking loser.
Of course, it didn't help when Giggly Boobs opened her thick hole and said this.
I think she should fuck off home.
Yeah, well, that certainly sounds like textbook racism. Not that she's ever read a textbook, well, not without chewing the corners like a baby chimp. Anyway, cue Bedlam.
Actual world events stopped and reality TV took over the news. Some pundits were so angry they forgot what they were angry about.
That say I'm a rapist, a racist, I apologise, a racist.
Fortunately, on level-headed Question Time, true experts were on hand to offer a more considered view.
She's a beautiful lady, and they are slags, and it hurts to watch it.
Before long, it was impossible to talk or even think about anything without first stopping and thinking, hang on a minute, is this racist? I mean, is this racist? What about this? Is this racist? What about cats? Are they racist? Of course not. But they are if you put a sign saying racist next to them. Boo! Death to the racist! Just to make things worse, in my opinion, Channel 4's reaction was pretty ramshackle.
Oh, look at his T-shirt. For God's sake, you look like a B&Q assistant. I blame Channel 4 and Endemol for all world evils.
Incidentally, this programme is made by a company part owned by Endemol, which is why you'll see a familiar logo popping up on screen at the end of the programme.
But we might hold a phone vote to have it replaced with a slightly less contentious image.
Something like this. Anyway, back to the race war, and by now the media had identified the main culprit, i.e. the one who'd actually made the least racially iffy statements, but was definitely the loudest and the most well-known. Even badly drawn robots were angry at her.
As Fiona Phillips found out on the techno-friendly GMTV.
Jade Goody is an absolute disgrace to Britain.
Jade was soon begging for forgiveness that never came for being something she said she wasn't but had to apologise for anyway. I think she hates people and I hate her for that.
I am so sorry, and I am so sorry.
Go on, cry yourself tolerant. Eventually, of course, Shilpa deservedly reigned supreme and all-out war was averted. There was supposed to be twice as many fireworks, but they were all extinguished by the execs breathing a huge communal sigh of relief when it was announced that she'd won. Anyway, that was Celebrity Big Brother 2007, and now I'm going to dance to some reggae to prove that I'm not racist. Oh, bloody Kingston, bloody town. Ooh, bloody yeah.
When broadcasting material featuring demonstrations of hypnotic techniques,
The hypnotist must not broadcast his or her full verbal routine straight to camera, presumably in case they accidentally convince the entire nation it's a chicken or something and everybody in the country stands up as one and pecks their way through to the Earth's core. Could happen.
the use of illegal drugs, the abuse of drugs, smoking and the misuse of alcohol must not be condoned, encouraged or glamorised in programmes likely to be seen by under-18s.
For instance, smoking scenes from the laugh-a-minute cartoon Tom and Jerry have been voluntarily excised from repeat showings.
In the bad old days when everyone died at the age of 25, people used to just light up on screen like they were French.
Look, here's Richard O'Sullivan puffing his way through an interview on bland 1980s morning show Breakfast Time. Today it'd be more acceptable if he was just sitting there wanking.
Demonstrations of exorcism, the occult, the paranormal, divination or practices related to any of these that purport to be real, as opposed to entertainment, must be treated with due objectivity.
Even though the paranormal is bullshit.
Case in point, Psychic Private Eyes, an incredibly tasteless paranormal investigation show in which
3 of Britain's most respected mediums have joined forces to reveal how their incredible gifts can be used to provide evidence where often the only witnesses are the dead. Colin Fry, Tony Stockwell and TJ Higgs will take on closed cases, help families find answers, unravel mysteries and illuminate the unexplained.
And they'll also stand around looking like a trio of gormless little chef workers on a day trip to Pissville. This is Tony, played here by Daffyd from Little Britain, and here's Colin, who perpetually resembles a rat trying to work out whether someone's just farted. Actually, there's no denying Rodent Face, there is one of the biggest mediums in the country. I mean, come on, they don't just let anyone on Ready Steady Cook, you know, it's the nation's premier lowbrow cookery contest.
Is food important to the spiritual world then, Colin? I think when people first pass over because they've had a lifetime of sort of experiencing food, you know, and just like anything.
Oh, here's Colin again in an exciting report from hard-hitting local news programme Focus.
But there was controversy after one of those seances when somebody unexpectedly turned the lights on.
Colin Fry was meant to be communicating with the dead while bound to his chair, but instead an invited audience saw that he was in fact standing up, holding a seance trumpet which they thought was suspended in the air by spiritual energy. Afterwards, he said that while in a deep trance, his body had been possessed by a mischievous spirit.
Yeah, those mischievous spirits are everywhere. Look, here's one making someone deface a picture of Colin. Oh, you mischievous spirit. Anyway, back to the tension and intrigue of Psychic Private Eyes, in which Colin and co probed the tragic case of a girl who disappeared many years ago. Her body was never found, but this poor woman has been tortured by the belief her own father might have had something to do with it. Now, before we proceed, let's get something straight here. I have nothing but sympathy for this woman, or, in fact, for anyone so hurt by the pain of bereavement they're prepared to believe there might be something in this psychic malarkey. The punters aren't stupid, they're just vulnerable.
I'm told to talk about scars.
Well, not much of a reaction there. Better widen the net a bit.
Both physical and emotional.
This seems like an opportune moment to have a quick chat with mind-reading magician Ian Rowland, who's an expert on something called cold reading.
Cold reading is the art of talking to someone so that you sound like you know a lot more than you really do. It's great when you're giving a supposedly psychic reading to actually be able to get information back from the person you're giving the reading to, and then kind of massage what you just said as if you got something right when you didn't. In this particular case, there's a clear statement that it's a railway ticket.
There's some importance to a one-way railway ticket.
It's not meaningful to me, I don't think.
I'm not going to forget it. I'm going to put it on hold for a moment.
And later on, that's corrected. No, it's actually a bus ticket.
I was taken on a one-way journey.
A one-way journey, not a train, a bus.
It was a bus ticket.
It was a bus ticket.
And the fact that there was actually a fact wrong there, train, not bus, is just forgotten. That's left to one side. and you just carry on focusing on the bit you got right. It was a one-way journey.
I was taken on a one-way journey.
Yep.
Well, we know she didn't come back, so I don't think that's particularly profound or impressive. Very good technique, though.
Thank you so much for being so brave.
Yes, thank you. And now, a quick tune on the trumpet. Once Colin's done his reading, it's time for the others to flex their paranormal muscles. First, Tony, played here by a fat Frank Spencer, tries to dig some extra clues out from a bit of old bottle.
If the object was connected to Moira, he will pick up on energy trails embedded within.
I think holding a hand up to your head helps the energy trails go into your brain or something.
His family's still alive. His family is still living on the Earth.
Oh, on the Earth, are they? Oh, there's some f***ing insight.
As if that isn't enough, TJ decides to dredge up further evidence by psychically reenacting the lost child's supposed last moments.
I can smell him on her. And she's so cold, her hands are absolutely freezing. But I could just...
TJ Higgs there, psychically reimagining the murder of a child for entertainment. Incredibly, psychics aren't done yet, because Colin's going to use his magic powers to find where the body's buried.
I certainly feel as though there is at least one child's body concealed here, but I don't sense her.
Oh, right. Oh, yeah. A couple of dead kids around here, but not the one I'm looking for, so f*** it. Soon Colin deduces the body is buried beneath someone else's coffin in a local cemetery. And, of course, you can't prove otherwise without digging up the entire graveyard, which isn't very likely to happen. How revolting and irresponsible you find it, I suppose, depends ultimately on how plausible you find psychics in general, whether or not you think they've earned the right to blow their own trumpet. Yeah, Colin? For this programme, I asked internet animator David Firth of fatpie.com to come up with an animation for us. He did this.
TV is shit, unless you have a text dramatizer, a wicked new device that downloads textures from the shows you're watching and pumps them directly to your fingertips for the maximum TV experience.
It feels like there's soil on my fingertips.
It's actually just code. How are they doing?
No complaints yet.
You have one new complaint.
I'd like to complain that when I was watching Inspector Morse, the grass texture felt more like asparagus.
Well, I can't help you now. I've just plunged our TV station 2 miles beneath the sea to help our producers come up with exciting new ideas. How about a docu-comedy sitcom soap about welders and welding?
Could we make that waders instead? You know, them boots that you wear?
I like waders. Let's do it. Back at the pond, Terry's run into a little bit of trouble with a local wasp.
Bloody hell, there's wasp in waders. That is so funny.
Then why don't you fucking laugh? If it's that fucking funny, then start laughing.
A long time ago, in a galaxy far, far away, there lived a cheery little series called Battlestar Galactica, which was set in space. It was meant to be TV's answer to Star Wars, a spangly, silly intergalactic action serial that pitted stereotypical space cowboys against a cruel race of robots called the Cylons. Oh look, there's Dirk Benedict in happier times before the televised race war. The show lasted a couple of seasons before tumbling into the black hole of cancellation. Now it's back in a boldly reimagined form, and it couldn't be much more different. Lots of the story elements are the same. Mankind's still on the run from the Cylons, except now the Cylons aren't all great big mechanised bastards. Some of them have evolved into disarmingly humanoid form, generally sexy women, all addled up with religious fervour.
God has a plan for you guys. He has a plan for everything and everyone.
Starbuck and Apollo are still around, except now Starbuck's a woman and Apollo looks a bit like a cross between Tom Cruise and Michael J. Fox. While the original was a frivolous panto, the remake is incredibly serious, like a constipated newsreader. It's less about whiz-bang space fun than the politics of war and all the moral quandaries that go with it. For instance, the current series opened with the humans under Cylon occupation. Before long, insurgent groups sprang up, desperate enough to try anything, even suicide bombing. It's jam-packed with thinly veiled references to the current war on terror, covering everything from neocons in space to the treatment of prisoners of war. Anyway, having said all that, it's not bloody news night in space. There's still plenty of zap, pow, biff, bang, pfft. Some of the special effects sequences are downright stunning, haunting almost, easily rivaling the best Hollywood has to offer. The cast, as is de rigueur for most American shows, is almost uniformly gorgeous, which often makes people like me quite angry and bitter.
There are loads of great characters, my particular favourites being Admiral Adama, who always looks like he slept face down on a box of pineapples, and Colonel Ty, who's a sort of intergalactic Larry David. But my favourite character of all has to be the flip-flopping goody-baddie Gaius Baltar, who's just like Withnail in the year 3000.
You know that fantastic scene in Withnail and I where Richard E. Grant pathetically tries to wriggle out of a beating in a pub?
What's your name, Matt? Fuck!
I have a heart condition. I have a heart condition. If you hit me, it's murder.
Well, that's Gaius, basically.
There are limits to the human body, to the human mind. Tolerances that you can't push beyond.
He's continually accompanied by number 6, a beautiful Cylon lady who only he can see and who may or may not be a figment of his imagination.
Oh, I was just saying that Dr. Amarak had requested to speak with the president. Dr. Amarak, I see.
You know, have you always been able to multitask like this?
Yes, yes. I used to work with him at the Ministry of Defense. It says here that he's uncovered important information regarding how the Cylons were able to defeat colonial defenses.
I was always a little worried he was on to us.
Were you? Going to speak to him? Perhaps I should speak to him if you're busy.
Actually, as an ex-smoker, these bits always remind me of what happens in my head when someone lights up in front of me.
Sorry, do what?
Oh, I don't really, I don't...
You want one, don't you?
No! I don't really know why people smoke those.
Those delicious, soothing cigarettes.
Shut up! Shut up the box of cigarettes and f*** off! Anyway, it's not perfect. There's quite a bit of corny sentiment and the odd bit of jar-headed gung-ho nonsense, but overall it's well worth getting into. Although, if you do decide to get into it, for God's sake, start with the mini-series, which you can get on DVD, before ploughing into the seasons themselves, or you won't have a clue what's going on. You'll be twice as confused as this. Now here's US stand-up Doug Stanhope with his view on television. On television.
I like dumb television. I watch TV to go to sleep because I got a head that just won't shut the fuck up. It's just constantly going. So, yeah, I'll put on television at night just to shut my own head up. You get a nice voiceover from the History Channel or Discovery. It has that monotone, and that calms my head. As Hitler's blitzkrieg raged across Germany, we have footage of bulldozers. And you go, I can sleep. You guys started all that reality show dog shit. The Pop Idol, and that all came from Survivor and Big Brother. It all came from Europe. And we have American Idol. It's like they use you guys as guinea pigs for a lot of these reality shows. They came from here. Like, even American Idol sucked. You wouldn't listen to those songs if they came on by the original artist in your car. You couldn't kick the knob off your radio fast enough. As long as they make it into a competition, people watch it so they can get a vicarious win without taking a chance. You wouldn't watch opera, but if they made Battle of the Operas, you'd pick an opera and you'd hope that other faggy opera lost. Fuck your opera. Your opera sucks. Give me the phone, honey. I'm gonna call that 900 number. Get my opera in the back of there. People don't do anything for themselves anymore. You just much rather watch someone else do shit. You know, all these television shows that are like work related, like Monster Garage and American Chopper, and you're just gonna watch him work. You're watching someone else's shitty job. They used to have freak shows where if you were born with 10 heads or you had like webbed legs, they'd put you in a circus and they'd put you on a hay bale and people could look at you through a knothole for a quarter. But at some point they decided that was wrong. So instead, if you're a freak of nature, you go on all the daytime talk shows and the Oprahs and the Maury Povich or whatever. They put some harpsichord music behind you and then it's an inspirational story. What does that inspire me to do? This is sad. It's depressing. It just makes me afraid to leave the house. Like, I'll watch TV just to hate what I'm watching, as though there's not enough stuff in my actual life to go out and hate. Like, this show is a show about television, complaining about television, so you can sit there watching television going, yeah, he's right, I hate television. It's a good show. Ridiculous. Nobody does anything anymore. Fucking failing species.
It might seem like anything goes on modern TV, but most of the time the guidelines aren't really tested at all.
Oh, look at the pretty hippopotamus. Anyway, next on BBC One, doily time. Ooh, that's a lovely doily. That's also a lovely doily.
Yes, the vast majority of what's broadcast is so soporifically entrancing it takes something really shocking to make you sit up and take notice. In the bleakly satirical 1976 movie Network, a TV news anchor causes a sensation after losing his mind and announcing his intended suicide on air.
Since this show was the only thing I had going for me in my life, I have decided to kill myself.
So what'd she say?
I'm going to blow my brains out right on this program a week from today.
But instead of blowing his brains out, he becomes the nation's biggest celebrity, a furious, ranting lunatic who cuts through all the bullshit and puts his finger on the suppressed rage and dissatisfaction of his audience.
I don't know what to do about the depression and the inflation and the Russians and the crime in the street. All I know is that first, you've got to get mad. You've got to say, I'm a human being. God damn it. My life has value. I want all of you to get up out of your chairs. I want you to get up right now and go to the window, open it, and stick your head out and yell, I'm as mad as hell, and I'm not going to take this anymore! I'm mad as hell! I'm not going to take it anymore!
And the effect on that audience is devastating, at least in the short term. Naturally, the execs, cheered by the ratings, quickly package him up as TV's Mr. Dangerous.
How do you feel?
And he doesn't change the world, he becomes just another TV show. The audience eventually gets bored and melts away.
Network was chillingly prophetic and more relevant today than on its original release, because now there's more TV than ever. And this sheer quantity is the final problem, because the moment anything with any truth or life or quality manages to somehow break through the ceaseless parade of mediocre on-screen bumwash, seconds later it's replaced by something else, and something else, and something else, and something bloody else. Watch the box for any length of time, and trying to retain the actual sense of what you've seen is like trying to read a book at an idiot's party. Ultimately, even something as worthy and harrowing as The World at War is reduced to the level of just another Justin Lee Collins vehicle, simply by virtue of appearing on TV in the first place.
All right, I'm JLC, and I'm here to show you some of my favourite bits from the art-rending documentary The World at War. Why does people fight with guns? It's a world at war. Right, the Second World War, it was an absolute right bloody mess. Look at it, it's absolutely bloody mental. Bombs all over the place, what a palaver. It was all these buggers' fault, the Nazis, nasty buggers. Ooh, oh, look at him, he's hard. Think he's called Hitler. Oh, bad times.
So, what have we established? Well, that TV is a hypnotic, overbearing, desensitising and ultimately bewildering force for shit that makes unthinking slaves of us all. But never mind, eh? Hooray for telly!
Woo, yeah! Woo, hooray! Yeah, bloody telly! On next week's show, why video games are better than telly. Plus, television ratings, what are they? No, really, what are they? How accurate are they? Are they accurate? Do they add up? Do they? And those funny little boxes that measure them, are those safe in the household, you know, with children sitting around them? Or are they not safe? Might they explode unexpectedly? If you know anyone with a ratings box, tell them they must watch next week's show or their house might end up like this. Go on, call them now and tell them to tune in next week, for f***'s sake!